the letters in the bag. It's a little bit of a tradition that we have. Not that anyone would cheat in Division 1 and leave good or bad tiles on the top of the bag, but all the same, we just like to shake them up to make sure that we're drawing from a nicely mixed set of tiles.
So I'm back, and I'll tell you why I was late. I bumped into Mark Francelon on my way out into the hallway. I'm trying to think of a proper analogy what his body felt like when he fell into me for a hug. I keep thinking popsicle stick. I don't know what it was. The man was just tendon and ligament and all tight. And he was just like, you'll never see me again on board one. And all he wanted to talk about was the dozen to play, of course. And he said, I saw it right away and I wasn't sure. And da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm so bad. And I said, and you put the D in the wrong spot. He just like, almost like a little piece of pudding fell apart. He says, on my very first turn of the tournament, I had the word arbalest. I played against Stefan Rao and I transposed the tiles and I got it down wrong. And he says, I do that all the time and I didn't want to make mistakes. And I saw a dozen and should I play it? Should I not play it? And as we predicted, he was just sitting there going, should I play it? Should I not play it? And he said, I just decided to go for it. What the hell? And it paid off. So that's a really good lesson for people out there, especially when you're playing against somebody who's really rated ahead of you. Like, go for it. Challenge that other person. Don't talk yourself out of stuff. And we saw the good that came of it. He won the game and very easily.
So Jason Lee's put down Gerd, keeping DRS left over on the last turn. Definitely reasonable play there. Meanwhile, David Gibson has no vowels, pardon me. Just a lot of consonants.
You want to know how Mark felt when he put down quiet on the board? I didn't ask him that. If I see him again, I will ask him that. But I can't imagine he felt anything other than fantastic. That's kind of like one of those questions they ask at the Olympics. What does it mean to you to win? Well, what do you think it means? How do you answer that question? It's great. He felt great when he put down quiet. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
So, opting to go with flip and play through a troublesome rack, not a bad idea at all. He doesn't have any reason to be panicked here.
Did you get a score from the previous game with David Gibson out to everybody? Would you like me to do that?
I did not get the final score from that game out.
I'm ruining it for myself because, I would have liked to have gone through the game later. But David won with a score of 410 to 325. So I'm not sure. He played David Pearl. I'm not sure if David missed anything, but when you have a 325 score, you do not have the best tiles. So we move on now to the next game.
So Waft keeps DRST. I'd say that's probably the strong play there. Blocks Fez. That could have gone down from David Gibson's side.
And in the Collins game, we are going to have David Eldar against Brian Bowman, who's a very excellent player. So I'll get you some updates on that game. But I will tell you that on his opening rack, David has picked a blank. Although he does not have a bingo with that. We're just getting things organized here, guys. We'll be back with you in a sec.
Meanwhile, David's gone with deck.
Looks like they're doing some rack balancing turns.
Neither of them are drawing an abundance of vowels at this point in time. Jason Lee is considering trod, OW, and da.
Da is a word, I don't know if people out there know that. That was a word that when I started Scrabble a long time ago, was a good word. And then somebody decided that it was not an actual word, that it was like Da Vinci, which was not a full word. Forgetting the fact that, for example, in Irish culture, da is a way that they say dad. And they took it away from us for a very long time. And when you take a 2-letter word away from a Scrabble player, it's like taking oxygen away from a Scrabble player. And we suffered without da for a long, long time. And then in the last couple of years, they finally realized that da should be back into our dictionary, and they gave it back to us. And they also gave us TE at the same time, which I can't begin to tell you was a gift. I think it was their way of saying, sorry for taking away da. Let's give you TE as penance. And we happily accepted it. So again, we're having, so not only do we have a lot of consonants now on everybody's rack, but that means that later on in the game, if this continues for much longer, we're going to have a whole bunch of vowel heavy racks.
Shout out to Chris Lipe in the chat here, taking credit for finding da in the Canadian Oxford Dictionary. Thank you. We certainly do appreciate that.
Thank you for looking in the Canadian Oxford Dictionary, or as we call it in Canada, the Oxford Dictionary. Do you know that joke from Friends?
I don't.
Somebody was going off to China, and they said, "Oh, you're going to have all that great Chinese food." Of course, there they just call it food.
Food. Nice.
So I riff on that all the time.
So David Gibson's continuing to play through with his racks here, opting not to exchange. And Vibrions is a nice gift for Jason Lee, thanks to that V that was just played on the board. And
Jason Lee is a very excellent player, and he has a lot more experience than our previous opponent that we saw. So you're going to see words come down a lot faster, which is always very jarring for your opponent. It's bad enough to have a bingo played against you, but when it comes down so quickly, you haven't even had time to order your rack, or even if you put your tiles down, face down, you haven't even had time to put them on your rack, and it's very frustrating when your opponent puts down a 78-point play and you haven't even looked at your tiles yet. So all of these things, they seem very little, but they do add up as you're playing your game. It does jar you.
I know A open for waltz, which would definitely clear up his rack pretty nice, but yeah, definitely not happening.
Do we know what the 6th tile is? So he's got 7 consonants, but he's got Y. So that kind of counts as a... Whiz is the obvious play. If he wants to get rid of more tiles, he can play Milty. We're looking through the I in Vibrions. It's the only really score-worthy available vowel right now. He could play Immy, I-M-M-Y. You would want to get rid of, you either want to get rid of some of your heavier tiles, or you want to get rid of as many consonants as you can. So Milty will accomplish the latter, and Whiz will accomplish the former. MMY is a good combination. Like F isn't a great tile, for example, but FF is a great combination.
So he's going for Whiz here, solid 30.
He went for a Whiz.
just like you, about 10
just like
minutes
I did. Okay, come on. Nothing yet in the chat on that one? Come on, you're slipping. And as expected, here we go. So now we're getting a whole bunch of vowels on Jason Lee's rack.
Yeah, a little overdue for it to finally start coming up in larger
Sluggish.
numbers.
All right. He almost has G pound. And yet he doesn't. Eugenio. We're getting different producers here, and they're putting the tiles up in fun, different ways. Gouge is one possibility, but that would put the E right next to the double letter score down to the triple row.
OG is another option he was looking at, and making ET along with that, but I don't know if he necessarily would need to play like that at this point. So
if he had a Y on his rack, he could play OG at 4B, just over trod, setting up his Y hook for Yogi. That would be a really, really pretty play. That's something like we like to do in Scrabble as well. We like to set ourselves up for the next turn, so you're never just playing in the moment. You're also playing 1 to 2 turns ahead. OG can also be played in the same spot, but starting the O at 4A right along the triple row. And if he just wants to get rid of a couple of E's, he can play Z and save EGNOU, which is not terrible. Of course, you'd probably want to get rid of a U, so Q is another possibility, KUE. Isn't it ironic that you can play the letter Q with a K?
Mm. It reminds me of one of my least favorite spelling errors that people make when they try and spell Q as in lining up in the Q. They just do QUE and forget to add another UE.
Oh, really?
I've seen it more often than not.
Isn't that Spanish like K? Or
it is K. Like,
¿Qué?
what?
¿Qué quoi? It's also a French word. Parce que, because. He's looking maybe at gouge, which is super volatile. There's still 2 H's left. There's still an F left. Oxide is a possibility. Is he feeling lucky? He's up by a... Oh, you know. So what goes in your mind when you're playing David Gibson? Oh, he's doing it. He's doing it. My goodness.
And that actually, with David's rack the way it is, it's actually fairly helpful here. He can do something like Malm. There may be better plays, but that certainly scores a fair bit.
Malm seems to be the correct play. MALM for 40 points. And Malt. Those are the 2 biggies. That would be for 34.
Before Jason Lee's play, it looked like David Gibson was thinking about playing Amil and Ka, which would have been a solid scoring option, but he no longer needs to play there. I would imagine he would opt for Malm or something similar over that. It
seemed like a pretty crazy play. David Gibson is notorious for a very defensive style, and Jason has just basically flouted in his face and going, you know what, I'm going to have none of that. And often people will play gouge, and the opponent will often have just 1-point tiles on their rack, and it'll be brilliant. He balanced his rack and he got away with it, but he's not going to get away with it completely this time.
Jason will have a fairly high scoring option next turn with Jute and Et near the top left. So despite the score that David's likely going to get here, Jute should cancel that out and keep him solidly ahead.
Perfect. But then there's the counter play by David, possibly with the J along the triple row.
Of course, Jason's not going to know this, but leaving DTY on his rack, David wouldn't be primed to take advantage of the J unless he drew well, which he could. Malm definitely the play here, so good to see that, and Jute should be the response shortly.
Also, aside from the obviousness that Malm is the best play, don't be afraid to play your 1 vowel in a situation like this. I mean, we're almost a third through the game. There are plenty of vowels left. So don't get, even though you've had like 4 tiles racks in a row with 1 vowel or no vowels, don't be afraid because they're coming.
Can Gibson draw an A? No? Okay, I was thinking maybe he would have pulled Hydrate out of the bag or something, but there's Jute going down.
Now remember, Jason has now played, except for Gouge, he's played 2 out of 3 turns very, very quickly, which is good for his... oh, and we have clocks now. That's great.
Yes.
And, you know, it will play on your opponent when you start playing so quickly sometimes. All right, here we're starting to get some vowels. He actually got lucky. He didn't get worse than that. Now, one possibility he has in setting himself up for the next turn is to play Kythe, Kythe, setting himself for a D hook.
Which he, of course, has on his rack already.
We talked about setting yourself up. But there's that risk-reward. One, there's still a D out, and number 2, there's 3 S's out, but also he would be setting up for a big play possibly at N10 coming down the triple letter score through the E and Kythe and coming down. He might just decide to keep a nice balanced rack, the THRED rack, which is beautiful with one more vowel, and play Y, W-Y-E, off whiz for 27 points, just 3 less turns, less points, and that's more a David Gibson kind of play, to play close into the board and not set anything else up. Kai would be very, very against what he tends to do, but he is down by quite a bit.
And if he were to open the board up and leave an E dangling, it would give Jason Lee enviable, which would give him an enviable lead at this point in
look
time.
at that. He would indeed.
And if there is a T, then bivalent.
Bivalent,
So
perfect.
those are both letters on David's rack that he could consider playing.
Other bingos in that rack are inviable and enviably.
And the Y is also on David Gibson's rack and something he consider playing. So there's lots of chances for him to potentially set Jason up to get a bigger lead.
Now, he would have given himself unviable, but the E would go right in front of whiz. And G-whiz might be good, but E-whiz is not.
No.
Okay, G-whiz is 2 words. We have to be careful. Isn't whiz a slang word? Well, we have lots of slangs in Scrabble. Because remember, it's the dictionary is a reflection of a constantly changing language, and there's plenty of slang in our language. That's really one of the greatest things about Scrabble. There's so many great things about Scrabble, but one of the really great things about it is, unlike chess and unlike most other games, our playing pieces change all the time because we use words as playing pieces, and because the vernacular changes, because language changes, because new industries pop up with new words. We are always adding to the dictionary, so it makes the game extremely dynamic, and you never really get bored because there's always new words to play. Now, David doesn't have anything off the J, so he's going to either have to, he might decide he wants to block through the U. Not that he's got anything good through that U, it just may not be worth it. So I think that's why he's taking his time playing this turn. And it looks like he just wants to play short. He's going to just play a couple of tiles. Let's see. He might play hey and eam and AY. Oh, no, he can't because that K is in the way. No.
So opting for
he does play the Y.
Play, yeah, good
okay.
play.
And what do we have? So he didn't give anything to Jason, who can play something. Yeah, he's going to play
Javelin.
Javelin, yeah. Which takes an A hook. Javelina. Again, playing very, very quickly. 51 points, why not? So we're seeing 2 games in a row where a lower ranked player is beating easily a higher ranked player.
I think this one is not
yes,
quite so surprising.
The disparity is not anywhere near. Jason's an outstanding player. But you know, it's David Gibson.
This is true. Although his playing style and thus the potential ways to exploit it are now well known, everyone is analyzing the way others play a lot more than they used to in the divisions, and really considering their annotated games when possible, and trying to incorporate that into their strategy as well, which is something else that Quackle can't help you learn to do. That's just a skill that you pick up over time.
Absolutely. Also, you have to be careful when you play a player. You can't, you might know their style, you might know about them, but you can't really let that detract from your style and what you need to do. It has to be a balance between the two. Oh, David is still having a little bit of trouble with vowels. He will have to start playing a little quicker, I think. Do we know what that 6th tile is? Does he have another vowel?
In his hand, that's an H.
He's
And
got
an E.
Dethers.
Yeah.
Okay.
To answer your question, Weibin, yes, David Gibson does tend to use a lot of his time. He doesn't, I wouldn't call him a buckhorn in terms of using every single second, but he certainly likes to be generous in use of his time.
Oh, we should tell you some buckhorn stories. Javelin is actually a verb. And if he just wants to get rid of ed, he can just play javelin. Because he's not going to get that many more points. He's got da at 13G to play gouged and AH. But that's a really good hook for himself, actually. He doesn't have a lot of options. And right now he doesn't have a lot of S hooks. He's got girds, and he can play off ET and jute. Oh, he's playing da. That might come back to bite him, because he might very easily pick up 2 vowels, but with that rack, that's not such a tragedy.
It's a reasonable play, for sure. So he's drawn an N, nice draw, and an O, I think?
If it's an
Couldn't see all
O.
of it.
Yeah,
it's an O.
S-drone.
Okay. So he's got S-drone in several spots.
S-drone takes an O in front of it. That's a nice little... It's such a beautiful rack, you'd think there's more bingos than that, but there's just the one.
So Bayous goes down and blocks in the process the...
S-drone's in 2 places, because he
the
could have
2
played it at
spots.
3C as well.
Yes.
And he's got nothing through the B. And Resonate and Earstone will not play through that A in Bayous. Through the M, he's got, I think that's a new word. Well, new, it's in the last 2 years. He's got Storeman. Was that new, or doesn't look familiar to me?
That should be newer. I can't
Newer,
remember. I'm keeping
right.
track of several books in my head now, so not the easiest.
Jason played very quickly.
Oh, it
so we
does
didn't
fit.
ha-
S-drone does fit on the top. I take that
Oh, it
back.
still fits. There you go. Okay,
One
perfect.
spot was blocked. And here I was looking and thinking, oh, it's almost tenebrio, but yeah, S-drone,
Does it have to do with being drunk?
yeah.
Like inebriate? No. All right, so we have us a bit more of a game now. A lot more of a game. Oh, Serpigo through an R. No,
If he had, yeah,
he's got 2 I's, though.
an R for pierogies.
Pierogies, right.
Sermonette, that is Collins. Weibin, that is correct.
Pierogies is such a tough word, because some of them take an S. Pierogi, P-I-E-R-O-G-I. May or may not take. Yeah, it takes an S. It's a really hard word to remember, all of the different iterations and which ones take S's and which don't.
And no offer. We are not commentating right next to them. They are on the other side of the room from us. There is also a wall and a big stage with lots of people on it separating us, so they can't hear us. Plus, we are also facing a wall when talking, and I don't think our voices bounce off of a wall. So I think this time, we actually had an incident last year where they heard us talking briefly, but...
and by us, he means me.
It was you. I was trying to be nice.
Oh, no. You listen.
This time around, we are facing a different direction, and we have a fair bit of space between us, so they cannot hear us.
In my defense, I will say that we did do our indoor voices all the time, and the only thing that changed was the fact that for the last few games, we were having finals, and we did not have 400 people in the room who would absorb the sound. And it was not taken into account the fact that the room was now quite empty. And so our voices carried a lot further than they did before. So we've learned our lesson, and it won't happen again this year.
Very good.
As God is my witness, it will not happen again. So let's see some plays. He's got Gossip and Wise at 14A. That's a very, very pretty play. The trouble is, he needs to come back and playing off his S. He's got to open the board. He's got to open the board. He might have to play ping through the N in S-drone to create another lane. So that's what we're talking about, creating different lanes on different quadrants of the board so that a person cannot possibly block 2 lanes at the same time. And playing a word like ping will accomplish that, but it will leave him with a lot of vowels, and there are a lot of vowels left. So you might want to consider playing Pine.
There are over 400 players attending this year, that is correct. I'm not sure exactly how many, but yeah, it is certainly over 400 from the last time I remember looking. And then Admiral, yes, technically an audience could be allowed, but there are very specific rules about watching games. Not all of us are super strict when we have players watching. Some of us don't care, but there is a standard in terms of what you can and cannot do. You have to have a neutral look on your face when watching if you're there, and even then, if someone doesn't want you there, they can still ask you to leave, and you do have to leave.
Also, bad form is holding a dictionary up, looking up words that your opponent has on his rack and pointing. That's really bad etiquette. There we go. He's opening up another.
So he's
going for
opting
points.
ping.
He's going for points, but he might get burned with vowels. We'll see what happens. He might pick up 3 A's. You never know.
So there's a fun 7-letter word on David Gibson's rack, which does not play here. He has beefalo, which is a really fun word, but that does not go down.
Oh, nice. Let's see what else. Beefalo. Trying to see if he has any other bingos. I don't see one for him.
Hank, the neutral look rule is not for the players, it's for anyone who is watching, because the concern when watching is if you make expressions with your face of surprise or disappointment or whatever when looking at someone's rack, then you are giving away valuable information to the other person on the other side of the table if they were to watch. And that's just not something that is given any room for happening in the tournament scene here. But no, the players could technically make whatever looks they want in their face. It's considered poor form, something that we would call coffee housing if they were to let out an exasperated sigh or look super happy or whatever when they draw certain tiles. There's no outright rule against it as far as I know, but it's considered very poor form. And there are directors in the room that can be called over. If there is anything that looks borderline egregious, there is kind of a spirit of the game rule that's invoked when there's gray area in some of this.
So just to go back to David's play where he played foal, I want to point something out to you. He had lots of options available to him in that area. He could have played floe, F-L-O-E, making ba and A-E, which would have been a blocking play because we don't have any letter that goes after A-E in Scrabble. The fact that he played foal, which created a very volatile spot, it's very easy to hook B-A, it's very easy to hook A-L. He did that intentionally, and this is because he's behind. But if he had been ahead, you would have seen flow go up there. It would have blocked the P bingo line to the triple, to the H, to the O, and it would have blocked up the board by creating AE. So for people at home who are learning how to play, this is a perfect example of what you do when you're behind, and he would have played flow if he had been ahead.
And then I see a question, is it considered good to have 2 wilds, or can you not score enough? Actually, there's some different schools of thought on this, and one that I would ascribe to is it's actually too much of a good thing most of the time. I'm not going to say all the time, but the preference would be to have them both separately at different points in the game so you can maximize the score with each one. So it's not bad to have both. It's certainly welcome. It makes creating a 7 or 8 letter word easier, but it's in the long term not going to help your score as much as drawing them separately would, if that helps.
Sometimes people will play off a blank. If you can get 40 points, if let's say your bingo is only worth about 70, and you can make a 40-point turn playing just one of the blanks and then saving the other one, you will sometimes see people do that intentionally.
And yes, there are junior tournaments. There is a North American SCRABBLE Championship, which transpired earlier this year. On the world scene, there is actually a World Youth Scrabble Championship that both Robin and myself will be attending and providing live commentary for. That's later this month, in fact. And then just 2 days after that tournament concludes, the World Scrabble Championship for all ages will be commencing. Both those events happen in Lille, France, and they will be broadcast live on the internet as well.
Oh yeah, come join us for that too. That's going to be amazing. Now, Jesse speaks Spanish and I speak French. So we're trying to decide whether we want to tell the powers that be that we know these languages. And say, oh, you can cover Spanish Scrabble, Jesse. Do you feel up to that, Jesse?
Strategy-wise, probably not the best person, but I could certainly interview them and understand some of the words on the board. Et en français aussi?
En français, je peux le faire, mais je connais pas tous les mots. What I just said was I could do it in French, but I don't know all the words, and that's a real problem. I don't even know a fraction of the words. I would need to get my Malaysian, New Zealand friend, Nigel,
Yes.
who memorized the dictionary. He doesn't know what they mean, but he can put the words together quite nicely.
And then just to answer another question, the video for the round that Ori was playing would be on the Twitch channel here. It should be uploaded shortly if it's not already, but it will be available on this GGS Live channel for you to watch if you wish to watch it play back. That was the first game this morning.
In terms of what David can play right now, he's got 2 Q plays. He's got cat, and he's got a newer word called cinq, C-I-N-Q, which is, cinq with a U-E is 5 in French, but is it also C-I-N-Q?
Cinq in French just doesn't have the UE at the end
doesn't
at all.
have the UE at all?
It's just C-I-N-Q, cinq.
Perfect, that I should not be doing French at the world.
And then I believe with the UE at the end, it's actually Italian. You know, if you're...
Cinque.
Yeah,
Cinque
cinque.
lire.
Yes.
I was just in Italy, and we were taught how to say, how much does it cost? Now I can't remember. Something, quanto costo? Quanto costo?
Quanto costa?
The trouble is, our guide did not tell us, and we would be given the answer in Italian.
Of course.
So we still had no idea how much it cost.
I have not gotten my Italian numbers straightened out yet, but I do have the French ones, the Spanish ones, and the Portuguese ones. So between all 3 of those, I can guess sometimes. But
Portuguese is like a language totally unto itself. It just
it is.
Watching the Olympics, it's very, very frustrating not to be able to. Oh, I speak Romance languages. I should be able to understand what they're talking about. And it's like, what?
To answer another question, I'll read this out loud so Robin can see it too. Do you feel that tournaments like Scrabble and chess could be eligible as Olympic sports?
Eligible, yeah.
That's, I'm going to say that one varies on opinion, and I don't know if you've seen, there's a story recently that came out for some sports such as surfing, I believe, is one that have been added for future Olympic sports. And there are actually some high-level athletes in those sports that don't want them to be Olympic sports because there's a certain elements of the game that they don't think translate well into an Olympic atmosphere, while other players think that it does. My personal opinion is, while I agree it is a mind sport, I don't think it would be something that could work as an Olympic sport. But that's just my personal opinion. Everyone is going to feel differently about that.
I will say that sometimes when I'm interviewed, I do say that I often, when I'm training for a tournament, I work as hard as any Olympic athlete, which is probably not completely true, but I certainly put in the hours that the Olympic athletes do. Do I feel that it's a sport? No, not in that sense either. I think that would be a bit laughable to have us there. I think we have other kinds of expos where and now we have Mind Sports International and all that. So no, I don't think it's a good idea, and I personally would not want to do the stomach crunches. How about you?
I wouldn't mind doing them. I just don't think it would really help long term with my Scrabble game. It wouldn't hurt.
Well, it helps build up stamina.
Certainly. And when your body is at peak efficiency, your mind is usually as well. So it would help that way, but we don't have to be super ripped to play well at the game.
I would love to march in the opening ceremony.
Oh, certainly. That would be a lot of fun.
I think our best bet, since a lot of us are, to be a top player, you have to have a pretty good mind. I think our best bet is to be on the team as team doctor and stuff like that. I think that's our only chance of getting to the Olympics.
And oddly enough, for any of you out there who know a Scrabble player by the name of Win Intara, he lived in Orlando, Florida for a long time. He is from Thailand. And he is actually part of, I believe, the coaching staff for Team Thailand in Rio right now. So we do have a Scrabble connection down there. He's an expert player in the TWL dictionaries, the one that we're featuring in this match. So he is representing us proudly down in Rio right now. So Win, you're probably not watching because you're
Cool.
busy, but we'll just send out a shout out anyway. And if any of you didn't know that, now you know. We have a Scrabble connection at the Olympics this week.
Very, very cool. My chiropractor worked the Pan Am Games last year.
Wow.
That's as close as I got to the Pan Am Games. Well, I went to the opening ceremonies, which were spectacular. Now, David played the last turn. I'm trying to figure out what he played. Well, wonder if I can tell my producer to click on history for a second there. Click on history, she said. Click on history. Thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so frustrating for David to be behind all game and then get both blanks. You never want to have both blanks on your rack. You want to have both blanks, but you want to have them on different racks so that you can score twice big with them. So that's testament to the fact that he's having a tough game here, that when that kind of thing happens.
Amit, I'm not sure exactly what Win is doing there, but even before he was going to the Olympics, he's been working closely with one particular golfer on the LPGA Tour. And I believe this golfer, I forget her name, and if I even knew it, I would pronounce it terribly, as most of us do with Thai names, but she recently won a major, so she's really broken through.
Oh, what's her name?
I actually don't know her name.
I'll think of it. She's fabulous. Very exciting.
She is from Thailand, and Win has gotten to be a part of her, I believe, coaching team.
Yeah.
In some way, so that is.
But we always get excited in Canada, like finally we have someone, Jenny Bouchard.
Yes.
And then but Jenny will come back because she's also fabulous.
And just to clarify that, Jenny Bouchard is a tennis player. And then Win is getting to represent this golf player from Thailand, and I cannot remember her name. I'm sorry.
It looks like Jason is looking to play D-O-U-X, and Estrone. At least he put his hand up there.
And to answer the question, Ori unfortunately did not win his match. It was a fairly one-sided endeavor, in fact, and he didn't have much of a chance to win, even after the first several turns had passed.
So Jason's taken advantage of the fact that he played quite quickly earlier on in the game, and he is now taking his sweet time, which is not a bad thing. And that's one of the advantages of knowing words very well. It's one of the reasons why we study so much, not just to be able to play them, but to be able to play them quickly. Because if we know immediately that that is the correct play, we don't have to waste any time. And then we could take turns like this for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and we have the luxury of that because we have saved time earlier on in the game.
And I've been given the name of the golfer. Her name is Arya Jutanugarn. Hopefully I got that sort of correct. But Win is working with her, not just at the Olympics right now, but also in general as she is traveling the world and playing in golf tournaments. No, he is not out of the tournament, Mimi. It just means that he lost that particular round. We're playing a round-robin format, and in that particular round, he was playing on board 1 against David Gibson, who was in this match. And David had the better of him in that game.
So we see what happened is that I don't know if Jason actually found a better play. I think if he had seen it, he would have played a D-O-U-X. He decided instead to balance his rack and go for the one-tile pickup. Unfortunately, I don't know that it's going to result in anything that he can actually play. He doesn't have a lot of places. He has to either have a 7 off of steered, to the right of steered, or he's going to have to play an 8 through the A or off of the A in Malm. And aside from that, his bingo options are quite limited, or non-existent is to be the more correct word.
Yeah, I'm finding that X placement puzzling, to be honest.
What, the XI?
Well, just as has been pointed out in the chat as well, XU on gouged would certainly score a lot
Oh my
more.
goodness! He's
So-
gonna kick himself later for that. I promise you. That was a boner. That was a mistake.
Mhm.
There's no other word for that. There's nothing he was setting himself up for. Wow! 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 Wow!
And Mimi Ori is by all means an excellent player. This does not reflect on his playing ability. He is certainly a good player. He just did not draw very good letters in that round, and
Why are we talking so much
yeah.
about Ori?
He has a lot of friends that are on this chat here
Ah.
from Magic the Gathering. That's
Ori is fantastic. When you get a low score like that and the other guy has the high score, why are we even discussing this? He had nothing. He had nothing. He's a brilliant player. He had nothing.
Yeah.
Happens. You move on to the next one. It's part of Scrabble.
Yeah. So Jason is, interestingly, let's just see how many S's have been played. 1, 2, 3, and both blanks are gone. So he knows he has the last S, and he is setting himself up for a potential huge score, depending on what he pulls
Yeah.
out of the bag here.
I'm sure he didn't want to get rid of the C because it's so synergistic with the H, but now he's got hoisted. That is an I.
Yes.
Yep, he's got hoisted, and it is unblockable in the sense that David would have a very hard time blocking it without opening up more stuff along the triple.
Do we know what he made the last blank? A D or an R?
He made it a D.
D? Okay. And we know that David Gibson likes to play almost paranoid defense at times, so we're expecting a defensive play here. It's just a matter of which one. Yeah, certainly. I mean, like, you know he's going to play something big, but you just wonder at this point. We know he sacrifices equity sometimes to make defensive plays, so
Right.
just
Doesn't
which
have a T.
one.
He doesn't have a T for Triennia.
You got to wonder if he's going to do O's in something, or if probably not. I think he'd be
Oh,
more
that's
likely to
right.
try and take out the triple word score heading downward, so...
I apologize for my comment before about the A, playing off the A in gouge. I had not put DAH into my game as we're following along here, so obviously that's blocked. So what can he do? One thing he could just do is play something like Din off the D and steered. Yes, his opponent can play through, potentially play through that N, but it will not be nearly as devastating as having a bingo that goes along the triple line for triple points. Oh, we're not sure if the second blank is an R or a D. We think it's an R now? We're not sure. Okay. Well, it's irrelevant. He did exactly what I said. He either played Rin or he played Din. It's worth the same points.
And it's too bad that Alech with the H doesn't work, because hedonist would go down, but instead...
Alech, yes. But, you know, he had to...
But there is a
accept it.
stenoid, actually. I take that back.
But it's not a good word. So that's going to come down.
And there's the challenge.
There's the challenge. Now the question is that good? Does he play any call-outs?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's have a look.